When Dale Earnhardt got killed in 2001, Richard hired me in 2002 to go drive that AOL car. These kids these days don't have any respect, so I think that's probably a lot he instilled in me. Mark Martin was another one.
Episode number 8 of the Pit Crew podcast. We got a special guest on today. We got NASCAR Xfinity Series champion Jeff Green coming up here shortly. I'm going to be joined by Robert Hill, and unfortunately, Chris from Drive Smart was able to make it for this one.
I'll take ownership of Drive Smart here tonight. Everyone gets a raise, especially Nick and Carlos behind the scenes here that make this all happen for us. But excited to have Jeff Green with us tonight. I have the opportunity of racing on iRacing with him each and every week in a Cup Series league that we take part in. He actually pushed me to my first win at Daytona last year, so we'll see if next week I can repay the favor and help him out there. But really glad to have Jeff on here. Glad you're here, Dustin, and let's see what we can do. Let's have ourselves a good time here tonight.
Absolutely. And with that said, I say we bring on NASCAR champion Jeff Green. The man, the legend, the Xfinity champion. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me, and it's always fun to talk about the past and the future and everything in between. So looking forward to it.
We're going to talk about it all here today. I mean, we're going to be talking about sim racing. We're going to be talking about your NASCAR career. We're going to be talking about all of them deers that we see in the background, your hunting career as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So tell us where you're from. Tell us about your upbringing and how you got into racing and motorsports that led you to the point that you're at now.
It's an hour show, right?
Oh, yeah. We got time.
Okay. I'm from Owensboro, Kentucky, which I'm living now. We moved away to North Carolina and moved back about 3 years ago back to Owensboro and built a house and a shop here. So I'm able to spend my retirement days out. But growing up in Owensboro, grew up with Michael Waltrip. We went to school together, and of course I followed Daryl, and as he was racing on the weekends, Daryl was racing. Mike and I were out gallivanting and doing the things teenagers do. So was able to keep my eye on the sport. Started racing go-karts at age 8 and raced go-karts all the way up to out of high school. Graduated high school and built a round track car that we took out to Whitesville, Kentucky, which is just 15 miles east of Owensboro. So it's kind of where all of my brothers and I made our start in stock car racing was at Whitesville, Kentucky, and little quarter-mile track, had a lot of competition, and we were able to win some races. And then I moved to Nashville to pursue a racing career. Went down there and drove 2 seasons at the fairgrounds for late model stock for a guy out of Nashville. I actually moved there to work on it and worked on the car and drove it on the weekends and had a lot of success. He got me to the next step. I worked for Wayne Day in 31W installation, building race cars, and he had a race car shop. Basically, we built chassis for people around Nashville, and we went bush racing, and that got me the next step for Dale Earnhardt to call me to go drive his bush car, and didn't have the success there in the 2 years I was there that I thought, or he thought, either one. I run second a lot of times, never to get to win, but my first win came with Diamond Ridge Motorsports in '97 at Las Vegas, and in the Busch Series, the Xfinity Series now, and that just got me. I drove for Gary Bechtel at Diamond Ridge Motorsports when we won that race, and they had a Cup car that Robert Presley was driving, the Cartoon Network car, and halfway through that season, I think we were second in points in the 8 car, and he pulled me out, shut that team down, and I went and start driving the Cup car. And that 97, the rest of the 97 season, 98 season, I drove for him. And then in 1999, I went to drive for Greg Pollux in that Kleenex number 32 car back in the Busch Series. Just didn't have the success I thought I could have or needed to have in the Cup Series. So I was able to step back, got with a bunch of great guys, PPC Racing, and we was able to win races in '99, and that turned into the 2001 season with the Nesquik car, and we were pretty much dominant. I don't think we could get beat much. We beat ourselves some, but we run top 5, I think 26 or 27 times out of 32 races that year. So pretty dominant season for me. And then when Dale Earnhardt got killed in 2001, Richard hired me in 2002 to go drive that AOL car. So stepped from the AOL car to Richard Petty's car, back to DEI in the one car, and I finished my Cup career with Haas Automation in that '66 car before Tony got a hold of it and straightened it out. But yeah, I had a lot of success. I only run second a couple times in the Cup Series. Never got to win, but we were competitive a lot, and I was pretty proud of my career in the Cup Series. The Busch Series kind of says its own. I think people look at our results, and we were pretty dominant back then, and that's really before the Cup guys, the Cup teams took over that series. I mean, today it's 75% are Cup affiliated teams. So to be able to race Mark Martin and those guys back in 2000, 2001, 1999, Dale Earnhardt Jr., we raced him a lot. So a lot of good times back then, and I wished we could kind of hit reverse or something, go back and just visit those days. But it's always in my memory. So it was a good career for me. I actually worked for Ryan Sieg the last 3 or 4 years. I didn't work last year, but the year before that, I worked for him 3 or 4 years before that, and helped him and start and park some for him, but also crew chief one of his cars for him too. The last year I worked for him, so that was fun to be able to still have hands on and be able to work on the car and make decisions on pit road and throughout the race. So that was something different for me. I enjoyed that a lot, but traveling I just got wore out. Just to have to go to the airport and be gone 4 days just to race one, it was just tough for me to do that, and I want to enjoy some life. So I can't complain about anything that happened through those from the '70s to 2020 or 2021. I can't complain about anything. Wished I could do it again. I don't know if I'd do it. I think I would do it exactly the same way. I feel like I would. I don't think I made any wrong steps, but it was a good career for me.
Absolutely. That's so cool. Becoming a Xfinity Series champion, driving for Dale Earnhardt, and doing all these cool things over the years, is such a legendary career because of that. But today we find you doing a lot of sim racing and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about iRacing and sim racing and what you're up to today?
During COVID, we was all looking for something to do. So my nephew Tyler, my brother Mark's son, he's a full-time spotter in NASCAR, and he had iRacing back in, I don't know, 12, 13, somewhere in that area. And I tried to race a little bit with him one night, or just basically run around the track, and I couldn't pull it off. So, but when everybody started doing iRacing, I thought, well, I got to do something. I got to get after it. So we built a rig and started the way I thought we needed to start it, with people telling me what I needed. And here we are today with 3 or 4 different things than we had then. And it's just, if I hadn't been on these tracks in reality, in real life, I would have argued till I died that they're not the same. But to the bump, to the stands, to the signs on the walls, they're identical of what it felt like in a real race car. So it's just fun to race guys as hard as you can race them, and just kind of put it in real life too as you're going. And I wish some guys would race differently, and they probably say the same about me. But racing around some people that you race with every week and they really run good, it just reminds me of some of the guys like Mark Martin, those guys you used to race against, how they would treat you on the racetrack. These iRacing in the league that we run in, that there's 15 or 20 of them that'll race you hard as you can race you and not touch you, but there's some that won't do that. But they probably never been in a real race car, and if you hit something, and back then especially, they didn't have no safer barriers or anything like that. So it hurt when you hit something, and not saying that you tore your car all to pieces. So I try to instill in some of the guys we race against that if you had to rebuild that thing each and every week, you wouldn't be coming back each and every week. So I think it will make them a better race car driver or sim racer. It'll make them better if they would drive it like they had to fix it, and I did. I had to fix it. I mean, when I drove for Dale Earnhardt, we built the cars, we tore it up. I had to fix it. So it got instilled in my mind throughout my racing career. I've really actually built every car until I got to Cup Series. I had my hands on every car that I ever sat in. So from the '70s to the 2000s. So I guess that's just instilled in my mind that I don't want to tear it up, but you can also go really fast and not tear each other's cars up, and everybody have a better result at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So speaking of sim racing, Robert Hill is quite the commentator and the driver on iRacing. I'm sure he has some good questions for Mr. Jeff Green over here.
I don't know about the driving side, but I do like to commentate here and then. But Jeff, obviously, both of your brothers also raced in NASCAR, David and Mark, with David being a former Busch Series champion as well. What's something that they taught you going into your career that really helped you transition from the life you were living to the NASCAR life and getting behind the wheel of those cars?
I think mostly, of course, David was there first. He's the oldest, and he moved away and went after his career before Mark and myself did. But just to treat everybody like you want to be treated. And I think some of the stuff I was talking about a while ago is the same thing. And um, you work hard. If you work hard, it shows. And what you put into it's what you're gonna get out of it. And my dad taught us that as we were growing up. I mean, we built go karts and built things along the way. He drag raced as we was growing up, so he taught us that all along. But when David got in it, and he also got the connections. And if it wasn't for Mike Waltrip, I probably would never got the job I did with Dale Earnhardt. Dale and Michael were buddies for sure, and he actually got me in that opportunity. But I felt like some of my success along the way sure helped him make that decision. I came home. I was actually working for Michael. I said in '94. I said, heck with it. I'm not. I'm tired. We were going when I was working for Wayne Day. We were going to the racetrack, working all week on the cars. I was driving the truck, and we'd blow up halfway through the race. Wayne was building the motors, and we run good, but we never could finish the race. So I got tired of it, and I said, heck with it. I called Mike, and I said, I need to do something. So I was living in Nashville, and my wife and I would been married a couple years, and we said, heck with it. Mike gave us a house to stay in over there, and I worked for him personally. I went to spot for him in '94 in that country time car, Pennzoil car. I spotted for him full time. So basically just gave up on my career. But one thing led to another. Junior Johnson wanted me to run an ARCA race at Atlanta at the end of the year. And also I drove a cup race for him that last race. I was Bill Elliott's teammate. And I actually run really good. We had a chance to finish in the top 10, but I stalled it on pit road under green, and I think I finished 11th or 12th. But it was a good day for us. But my story leading up to that, I came home from working with Mike one day, and back then y'all don't know anything about this, but we had answer machines, and had an answer. I had a
I've heard of them.
have you had a message on the answer machine? It was Dale Earnhardt, and I thought, this can't be. And I called everybody I knew that would put a prank on me like that, and nobody owned up to it. So it was him, and I went to meet him the next day, and it was on from there. So those 2 years that I worked for Dale was it was something. I mean, he was just doing it out. We called it the Deerhead shop. It was a 3-bay shop with we had 3 cars. So I mean, Dale Jr. would just start to run late model stocks then, and we'd have to work on his car and straighten the chassis out every week when he backed it into the fence, and work on mine when I tore it up. So it was a special couple years. I learned a lot about the sport. I learned a lot about life from Dale. I'll never forget those days.
And throughout your career, Jeff, obviously you got the opportunity to drive for a lot of legendary owners in the sport, from Dale Earnhardt, Richard Petty, Richard Childress, Junior Johnson. Is there one of those opportunities that stands out as your favorite, maybe for one reason or another? Obviously appreciative of all opportunity that you had, but is there one that you're like, damn, that was really cool?
I mean, yeah, you're right. I was very appreciative. Probably not as appreciative as I should have been at that particular time, but you know, Dale Earnhardt was the start of it basically, and um, I was trying. He'd been running that Bush car, part time, and '95 was the first year that we run it full time, and I was I was expected to do what he was doing, and for one, I didn't have the experience. I mean, I just run a couple years, and he'd been running since the early '70s or early '80s, I guess. But um, anyway, I just didn't have the experience to do that, and but that was a couple years that again I won't never forget. But I think Richard Childress was a really good friend, and he took me under his wing. We a couple of these deer in here are from where we went hunting together, so I remember those days. But if I had to personalize one of them, I think Richard Petty. He was just so down to earth and such a good guy. You never did see him without a smile on his face, no matter how good or how bad we did that day. It was always, little buddy, this is what we're going to have to do. And if you can do this, I think we can run better. It's not you have to do this. So it was he was a special person, and it still is, from what I hear. So um, I think if I had to single out one, they was all special in their own way. But Richard Petty was, I think, the best.
And out of all those owners, of course, nowadays a lot of owners in the sport are kind of hands off, put the money in, have people run the team for them. Were all those owners really hands on, getting down there with you and having those chats with you each week and debriefing or looking ahead to those races with you to help you prep?
Uh, on a Monday or Tuesday, they were. They wasn't really hands on at the racetrack when we came back to the shop when we had our meetings and things. And a lot of those, like at RCR, we had I had two teammates, so there was three of us. So they can't just single out one car. I don't think they have to look at the whole scenario. And
Of course.
yeah, but I mean, Richard, he was, Kyle was driving the other car at the time I was there, so it was probably a little easier him for sit down just with me. But no, I think mostly all the advice was in the team meetings. It really wasn't ever at the racetrack. Or I mean, we had a plan when we went there for sure, and we tried to make it happen. But if it didn't happen, we would talk about it and try to make the best plan for the next week.
And you mentioned teammates. I got to ask, did you have a favorite teammate throughout your years in your career and maybe a little bit of a rivalry with them as well?
Well, I think all teammates are very competitive.
Of course.
We have the same things that he does. So yeah, we kind of. I mean, I felt like I based some of my productivity off of what my teammate did, and um, I don't know if I had a favorite. Jason Keller was always really really good to me. Raced me really good. We never really. I don't think we really ever raced each other for for I'm going to win this week, or I'm going to be better. I'm going to be the best teammate this week. So there were some places that I went, RCR being one of them, that one of the teammates we didn't see eye to eye. We were at each other's throat each and every weekend, and um, you know I, I'm not going to say he was the favorite of the team, but it sure did feel that way. And I was the outsider coming in, and we raced really hard in the Bush Series and had our moments in the Bush Series too. So kind of played over to that.
I'm going to toss you back over here to Dustin, see what he's got for you. Dustin.
Absolutely. So you made your last Xfinity Series start in 2020. Could you ever potentially in the future come back and make any more starts if the right opportunity came along?
I don't want to get my wife on here. She said no. She says no. And I'm, like I said, I'm 61 years old, and it's a young man's sport. And that's one of the reasons. I mean, I got there because of my abilities. I didn't get there because I was bringing millions of dollars with me. So these days, it's just the opposite. I mean, you got to have money. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's a few in the Cup Series that don't bring money, but for the most part, I'd say 99, 95, 90 or 95% in the Xfinity Series, they bring their own money, and they can kind of do what they want to. That's why they don't change rides a lot anymore. Or they switch to a better team or something. But to answer that question, I don't really have any desire to. I felt like I was in my heyday I was prime when I was doing it, and I got lucky to be in that era. Basically, my brothers too. I mean, we would have never made it if we had to do what these guys are doing these days, searching and clawing for money and things like that. So no, I think I'm just gonna sit around and watch them and do a little hunting and do a little hobbying and things like that.
Completely understandable. So my next question is, you talked about hunting. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing nowadays and your, over the years of hunting and what that has meant to you, and a little bit about that hobby of yours. Because we
Yeah,
see a lot of deers in the background.
yeah. There's a few in here. I like I said, I went with RCR a few times. I showed y'all the moose I have up on the wall. I put in for, you have to put in for a tag in Maine, and this was in, um, I'm guessing around 2004 or five. I finally got drawn in Maine. So after the New Hampshire race, we went up. My bus driver and myself went up there, and it's about a 3-hour drive, I think, to Bangors where we stayed. But put in for 10 years to try to get this tag, and the hunt was over in 10 minutes. So it really made me mad. But the bull was so big, I had to shoot at him, and it just over really quick. And but I've been really lucky to be able to kill some things. Turkey hunting, our season starts Saturday, so turkey hunting is my favorite. You can get on the ground with them and call them, and they'll answer you and talk to you. So it's just been really lucky to hunt. And these days I hunt my wife's family farms, so they have about 5,000 acres that I help them plant and harvest. So that gets me out of the house probably 2 to 3 months a year. The rest of the time I've got a metal shop here in my shop, and I fix old cars for people and build stuff for myself when I can, when I'm not working on somebody else's car. So those things keep me busy.
Absolutely. So speaking of hunting, obviously Dale Earnhardt is really big in hunting. I'm curious if you have any memories or if you ever went hunting with Dale at any point. And what's the biggest thing that Dale Earnhardt has taught you during your time of driving for him?
Let's see if I can find it. I don't, that I turned the wrong way. Here we go. I'll figure it out. That one on the end, on the very top, he's got one horn.
Huh.
I don't know if y'all can see that or not,
Yeah.
but that come from his farm. Yeah, that's it. It come from his farm. So anyway, he had 500 acres, high fenced, and he knew every deer he had in there. So one afternoon, he wanted to kill some coal. They called him coal bucks, which is what he was. He's not gonna make anything better. So we went out and sat in a big old shed, and this deer come out along with his $100,000 stud deer, and they was side by side. And he said, "You sure you're on the right one, don't you?" So, yeah, I was on the right one. He didn't want me to shoot a stud, so that that's kind of a funny story. And he really didn't use those exact words. He really he made
Couple
it a
other
little bit
words in
different.
there.
Yeah, yeah, he was, but he was just messing with me and make sure I was going to hit the right one. So, what's your other question?
Oh,
Sorry.
well, the other question was hunting with Dale Earnhardt was the biggest thing that Dale Earnhardt has taught you during your time of driving for him.
Uh, I mean, car control. He tried to teach me, but I mean, he can only teach so much when you're just sitting there watching it. I think more than anything is just be respectful of who you're around. Um, be respectful in life, basically. And that's when I got out of the Bush series, and when the first race in the Cup series, I'm racing Dale Earnhardt, I'm racing Jeff Gordon, I'm racing Terry Labonte, and those guys. I wanted to move over for them and let them go back. I didn't. I don't felt like I was legally be able to race them because I just wanted to show them as much respect as I could. These days, the last race I run in 2020, you said at Phoenix, I think it was, and um, these kids these days don't have any respect. So I think that's probably a lot he instilled in me. Mark Martin was another one. I mean, he's probably the when you catch him, he just turns left and lets you go by him, and then sooner or later he's coming back around you. And I tried to do the same thing. So I tried to do that a lot in our race, and it kind of, but these guys don't understand. So, but I think that's the biggest thing that he taught me is just to being respectful and get all you can out of your race car, what you got, and if you got a fifth place race car, finish fifth with it. Don't try to win with it and tear it all to pieces. So I think that's the things he taught me.
Absolutely. So coming up through the ranks and working your way into NASCAR, what did it mean to you to capture a championship in the NASCAR Busch Series, racing against some of the best of your time?
Well, I mean that's what I signed up to do. I wanted to win each. We wanted to win every week, especially in 2000 when we won the championship. We knew when they unloaded. I knew when they unloaded that car that we had a chance to win practice, to win qualifying, and win the race. Everywhere we went, it didn't matter where we were. I mean, it's this track wasn't any better than the next one. So um, that's what I really remember winning the championship was a bonus, and I mean we won it by 600 points. So that was the bonus on the top of the cake. And but to be able to go out each and every week when you roll in the gate, that people are looking, well, he made it again. We're not going to be able to beat him again. So I think some of those guys really thought that. So we had them a little bit full, but we were able to pull a lot of them off. So it was a fun year for me.
Absolutely. So I want to pass it back to Robert Hill and let him come up with some clever questions I'm sure he has here because he's definitely quite the stat man.
So your career, Jeff, obviously spanned about 30 years or so across NASCAR's top few series. Who's the best driver that you raced against? And in that same regard, who's a driver that maybe didn't get the credit that they deserve that you really noticed while out there on the racetrack or as a crew chief?
I, I would have to say Mark Martin was probably the best that I raced against. Kyle Busch was coming along the last couple years that I raced Cup, and of course we know what he's done. So that would have to be those two. And Mark Martin in my heyday was. I'm not saying he's the best, but I keep talking about respect. He knows how to race. He knew how to race each and every lap to get what he could for the end of the day, and um, so that's probably the two guys that I kind of remember. The guys that maybe didn't get the opportunity. I mean, there's a lot. My brother's one of them. Mark
Yeah.
was probably one of the best. I think he's just as good as either me or David. So he just never got the opportunity to be with the right people. And it's no different today, but back then, it's those 5, 10 guys that you've got surrounding you. Is what makes a difference. I didn't when I in 2000 from 1998 to 2000, I just didn't learn how to drive. I mean, I felt like I didn't have those guys surrounding me, and those guys. Harold Holly is probably the smartest in his day. That's before engineers come along. Harold Holly, my crew chief on the Nesquik car, he was a step ahead of everybody, and it made my job a lot easier. Or it made it easy. It didn't make it a lot easier. It just made it easy, and we were able to be a tenth better every lap. Or I remember going to Milwaukee in 2000, and we sat on the pole by half a second over second. So we had it figured out. We led almost 250 laps. I think we led 220 something of them. So that's kind of days you want to remember. And he had it figured out. He was before the engineer guys that today the engineer guys is the ones that's figured it out. So Harold had it in the back of his mind. He was the best that I work with anyway.
And obviously, you mentioned some of those guys that were really strong when you were coming up through the ranks. Is there someone, I don't know how much NASCAR you still watch, Jeff? Obviously, some former drivers disconnect from it a little bit, but is there someone that you see now out there that maybe doesn't get the full credit that they deserve that you think has real potential to be another great driver out there?
Well, one comes to my mind is Jeremy Clements. He does a lot with nothing. And there's so many guys, I haven't been to the racetrack in a couple years, so but to watch them on TV, I know what Jeremy's driving because I'm sure it's the same stuff he had then when I was there. So Ryan Sieg, he's definitely. I don't know Ryan. I don't think Ryan can. He needs to just one more step and be there, but some reason he can't get there. But some of those underfunded teams, it doesn't show. It's like I said, you have to have the right people. A lot of guys, a lot of the teams have the same stuff these days, especially the top 20. In the Cup Series, I guess everybody's got the same thing, but in the Xfinity Series, the top 20, I would think are getting all the same parts and pieces, and um, to, but you still have to have the people that to turn the wrenches and put the setup in the car, and I think that's when my career went downhill. When I got the Cup Series, we started coil binding springs and things like that, and it just took me out of it basically as a driver. So around 2001 or 2002 is when all that started. So that hurt me. But if you don't have the right guy to put that spring in there and put the right amount of rounds in it, or pick the right spring to where it'll coil bind or clamshell, whatever you want to do, at the right moment on the racetrack, you're never going to drive it. I don't care who's driving it. So it's probably more important to have the right people today than it is ever has.
it definitely is important to have the right people around you. And we've seen some of those underfunded teams really be able to take the people and make that the difference maker for them to take them to that next level. But on the topic of the underfunded team, you've raced for some of the top teams. You've also raced for some of the teams that maybe don't have the same resources as everybody else. What's the biggest difference from the driver's seat when it comes to those opportunities? Do you have more work to do when it comes to racing for the underfunded programs?
Yeah, because you don't get to try. I mean, simulators are everything these days. Back then, you went off your notes. You had pull down rigs, and we never had a pull down rig back. I don't think the first pull down rig I ever seen was probably mid 2000s. So, um, in my racing career, I really, the later years, of course, I was able to be around one and look and see what it did, make well, they pull the car down where it's sitting on the racetrack and they can look at the things, look at the springs, how they're setting on each other. So some of these, I would think 90% of the guys have it these days, but if you don't have it, you're just going off notes and going off things you did in the past. And as the tires change and the tracks change throughout the years, all that stuff changes with it. So it's tough to have those notes to be able to go back year after year.
It definitely can be tough for sure. And you mentioned a little while ago to Dustin how, you spend a lot of time out in your shop working on some cool stuff. What's the coolest thing you've worked on out there in that shop, Jeff?
I've got a 41 Willys with 900 horsepower that's street legal. So
It's
that's one
pretty
of my
powerful.
toys, yeah. And I built a '69 Camaro. And I actually just got through with a '50 model pickup truck for a guy. We lowered it down, put a new bed on it, and did a lot of hot rod stuff on it. So, uh, kind of everything I like to work on is pretty cool. So, built a few iRacing rigs and get to look at people's and try to make changes and things like that. So, I run RC cars, dirt. I run dirt RC cars in the wintertime mostly, so I get to work on those little things a little bit. They're 10 scale. They're, I don't know, 18 inches long. So they're a race car, and you're able to do things to them that I did to a real race car. So it's pretty fun to work on those too.
That definitely does sound like a good time. I didn't know you were into the RC cars, but it would make sense. Your iRacing team you're aligned with, I think quite a few of them do that stuff. So
Yep.
something to chat about there. And you know, obviously now you're a driver that had so much knowledge, still so much knowledge about how things worked back then, how things work now. Do you get involved at all with any level of racing? Do you get out to the short track, maybe do a little bit of consulting or do any sort of coaching or anything like that, Jeff?
No, well, last couple years I've helped a boy here in Owensboro. I say help him. I go over and help him set the car up. It's a CRA street stock, which is kind of a
Yep.
late model with a street stock body on it. But he runs up at Salem, Indiana, which is a couple hours from here, and he actually won the championship last year. And I helped him. I know I went to the racetrack a couple times to test with him to help him try to make it drive better, and we're able to do that. So that's really the only touch I've had on a race car here in the last couple of years. But that's a lot of fun and not a lot of pressure. So, and I can drive there, so I don't have to get on an airplane to get there.
Anytime you can avoid the airport and having to go through security, it's a good time.
I tell
Dustin,
you,
what you got, my friend?
Absolutely. So you talked about some of the drivers I looked up to growing up, which is like Jeff Gordon and Mark Martin. So back before you made it to NASCAR, what drivers did you look up to that inspired you or that you were maybe just a fan of?
of course, Daryl Waltrip because he was from Owensboro and I run around with his little brother, so I had to look up to Daryl. I mean, David Pearson was didn't get to, and tell you the truth, I really never watched NASCAR until I started running an oval track in early 2000, or early 1980s. I'll get it right here in a minute. That's really the only time I really started watching NASCAR. I remember watching the Daytona 500 when Cale and those guys and Bobby and Donnie got in a fight, and thought that was pretty cool. But when was that? 78 or 76 or something like that?
I think around there, yeah.
Yeah. So never really watched, but I had to pull for Daryl because I was running around with his little brother. But David Pearson was a guy that, just looking back at his career, had to have a lot of fun. I mean, he didn't really run a lot of races, but he won every time he raced. So that's pretty cool guy to follow.
Absolutely. So, also, since you made it all the way to NASCAR and became a Xfinity Series champion, what kind of advice would you give any kid out there today wanting to make it into NASCAR and becoming a champion like you did?
Well, I started racing go-karts at the age of 8, and seemed like today they're starting at 3 and 4 years old, racing quarter midgets and things like that. So definitely the sooner the better. I mean, to like Kyle Larson, those guys. I mean, I'm sure they was 4 or 5 years old when they raced, and the age is. I think I would think probably I was 25 or 26, 27, that area before I ever run it on a big track like Charlotte or anything like that. So in the Busch Series, but my suggestions and is just to race everything you can race. Knock on everybody's door you can to be able to drive their car, or you never always try to be as nice as you can to somebody that might be your next car owner. So to be able to just race the things you can when you're able to do it, and if you can, and just hopefully it'll open the next door up. And it's kind of what I did. But like I said, things have changed so much these days that you almost got to pick up the phone more than you do turn the steering wheel. So, but you still got to get it. You got to get a little bit of success, I think, to be able to convince these people to give you money to go do that. So just race when you can, what you can, as quick as you can, and as much as you can.
So you got to drive for Richard Petty. Growing up, I would imagine seeing Richard Petty be the king of NASCAR, win these 7 championships. What did it mean to you getting to drive behind that Petty Blue number 43 car for when you got that opportunity?
Well, again, I look back at that, and I probably didn't realize what I was doing, because I mean, to climb over that number 43 every week, and then I climbed over that 3. I mean, it wasn't a cup car I was climbing into, but it looked just identical to it. So to climb over that 43 was, I mean, it was a success in its own. I mean, I didn't have. I mean, it brought me so much notoriety, and people looked up to that number each and every week, and so I had a lot of fans from. I got a lot of fans from that. So, but again, looking back, I probably should have pinched myself a few more times to really realize what I was get myself into, and being able to carry on that legacy.
Absolutely. How engaged was Richard Petty with the team back then? And what is some things that he may have taught you during your time of driving for him?
I don't think he wasn't really engaged. I mean, he was there every week. Him and Dale Inman, his crew chief from the day, they were there every week, and Dale really, I think he probably helped me more than the King did. He would clock my corners for me and try to tell me exactly where those guys were beating me and things like that. So the King was always signing autographs or doing public stuff, to be able to and signing autographs. So I don't really think the King was that hands on, other than at the shop when we had our meetings and things like that. But Dale Inman was the you might say the coach. He didn't do anything but sit there with a stopwatch the whole practice, and try to, he'd tell us where we were off a little bit and try to pick that up and see if we did.
So every driver has their favorite track, or there's a track that they're really good at, or that stands out to them, or maybe just a home track that's their favorite. Is there any track that stands out to you where you think, hey, this was my track, I was super good at it, this is my best track, or maybe just your favorite?
I liked a lot of them. I mean, I don't say I didn't like any of them. I liked all of them, but if I had to pick a couple of them out, it'd be Richmond. It'd be one of them. But Bristol was probably my favorite. I had more success there. I won a couple races there, but I never finished. I was always in the hunt to win. So in Richmond, we really run good there a lot of times. But in the Cup car also too, we run there good. So that would be the two that I'd single out. I liked them all, but those tracks kind of put it in your hands a little bit more than the car. You got to have a good car, of course, but the driver had a lot to do with the braking and throttle control and things like that. So those were some fun racetracks and some good ones for me.
So as you got later into your career, you accomplished it all. You drove for Dale Earnhardt, you drove for Richard Petty, you won that Xfinity Series championship. But when it got 2020 and you were ready to hang it up, When did you know it was time, and what was the deciding factor of that? I know earlier you talked about the traveling was getting to be a lot, and I would imagine over the years that has to be very, very, very demanding.
Yeah, and then I'm getting older too. Don't forget that. So where we live in here in Owensboro, pretty much have to drive to Nashville or Louisville to get on the airplane, which is 2 hours each direction. So um, and we race on Saturday most of the times in an Experience Series. So I leave Thursday morning to get there Thursday night, um, to practice or go through inspection on Friday, race Saturday. Have to wait till Sunday morning to get home, to get on the airplane to come home. So I'm Sunday night getting home. So for 4 days I'm on the road, away from home. So that just put a bitter taste in my mouth. And when we lived in North Carolina, we were 10 minutes away from the private airplane. We went over and I leased a plane, and we went over and got on it. And 10 minutes after, or an hour and a half after the race, we were home. So just made life difficult when we moved back home. But my wife wanted to be here, and I wanted to be here. My grandmother just passed away at 102 a couple years ago, so I got to enjoy some of her life before she passed away. So my mom still lives here. So it was fun to come home and enjoy life a little bit. I don't think anybody ever tapped me on the shoulder and says it's time. It just things worked out for the best for us to do that, and just said the heck with it. And I watch every weekend, try to as much as I can, and it's still fun to watch, but it's still not those days in the early 2000s and late 1990s. So um, this it's not racing like it was back then anymore. It's pretty much a store bought car, especially the Cup Series, and the Xfinity Series is a lot like that. So the crew chiefs is, their hands are off of it anymore. And Harold Holly, the next quick car, I mean, he worked 7 days a week, work all night long to make it better for me. And those guys can't do it today. I mean, they're in such a box, they won't let them get out of it. So it's just so much different. And it's just the traveling's really what bit me though, and to be able to be gone that much. And I don't. My dad passed away at 77, so that tells me 16 years. I've got. That's all I got to be on Earth. So we're going to try and enjoy as much as we can, and hopefully I can live longer than that. But my grandmother lived 102, so I might be here longer than I think. But I still want to enjoy life. I mean, I've worked. You said 30 some years, and then from 8 to, I think my first NASCAR race was in 27 or something. I mean, I was 27, so I've worked all my life racing, other than the last 3 or 4 years. So it's time to relax a little bit.
Absolutely. Relaxing is definitely a good thing, and you definitely deserve it, man. I mean, all the years you put into racing and built the career that you have, nothing more than congratulations to you, because you definitely
Thank
earned the ability to relax and settle down and enjoy the things that make you happy, whether if that's hunting or still getting out to your local racetrack or whatever that may be. But I'm going to pass it back to Robert here and see what questions he has for you.
Yeah, Jeff, obviously, you mentioned that you try to watch every weekend. Let's get maybe a little bit controversial here, potentially. What changes would you make to the sport in general and NASCAR in general to get it back to being the great sport that it was? Obviously, it's taken a little bit of a hit over the last couple of years, somewhat with some of the changes that they've made. But as Jeff Green, what would you do to get it to the level you wanted at?
Well, I think they need to go back to cars we run in the early 2000s. That's what, the four or something, or um, generation four or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
And
Gen
then
4, yeah.
and then they need to get off the bump springs. They need to get off the bump shocks. They need to put the driver back in the situation instead of the car and the team. As far as the engineering part of it, um, to me, I mean, really, looking at the 70s and 80s, that was probably the best racing. I mean, they had those big old cars, and they was a foot off the ground. Nowadays, they're, if it comes up an inch off the ground, that's too much. It's losing downforce. So if they could take the body back out of it, where you have to rely on more mechanical grip instead of aero grip. I think it'd make better racing. Make the tires wear out like they used to. I mean, I remember back at Darlington, Rockingham, places like that. I mean, you didn't even want to drive down pit road to get on the racetrack before you qualified. You wanted to push it down there. So things like that would help the sport. I think the cautions for the stages is wrong. That's planning the race for the crew chiefs for whatever starts. And I mean, Chad does. I think that's the best call he's made in an elite series is not have cautions. You can still have the stage points, but don't have the cautions. And I think that I don't know why NASCAR won't do that. It's a be easy fix, but I think they did that. Well, they didn't even have them they didn't have stages period at the road course last year. I don't think they paid points or anything. So I mean, if they want to pay points, that's fine. Just pay it on lap 50. Don't throw a caution. So those some little things. I mean, I don't know. Our world's so much different. You can't buy the same part you did in 1990 you can today. If you did, it's 4 times, 5 times the cost. So, it's got really out of hand. I noticed on Twitter, I noticed a total or a purse for this weekend is 1.5 for the Xfinity races. And I think back in the early 2000s, we was having $1 million purses. So that hadn't followed along what these owners are making or what the drivers are making along the way, to keep up with the economy and things like that, to be able to buy the parts that's 4 or 5 times more. So I think some of the things that's hurt NASCAR, especially on the driver's side, is these drivers are a lot of them in the Xfinity series are driving for nothing. I mean, they're bringing their money, I guess. Some of them, they're probably taking their salary out of that. But shoot, man, I drove a race car to make a living, and these guys these days are driving for nothing. So that kind of took the driver getting paid out of the situation. So, and that's probably another reason I just decided to hang it up is I don't feel like I was making the money that I was deserving. So just things like that I think would help our sport. But I mean, those guys, they've been going on for what, 70 some years now. So hopefully they can go on 70 more.
And you mentioned there how you used to drive a race car to make a living. Now it's kind of like you have to make a living to drive a race car, which really complicates things. And we saw a thread on Twitter this weekend from Akinori Ogata, who was driving for Joey Gase Motorsports. And he was mentioning how hard it was for the drivers in the back of the field to attract sponsors because they're not getting shown on the broadcast at all. And I find that that's really tough. It's really frustrating as well. I mean, of course, with Drive Smart, we sponsor Kyle Weatherman driving the number 91 for DGM Racing, and it's kind of the same thing where you don't necessarily get all that TV time. So it's hard for those drivers to get out there. So you don't have the added sponsor dollars, you don't have the added purse, and like you said, we're doing 1.5 where it used to be 1 million like 15 years ago. It doesn't compute, right? It doesn't add up.
Yeah. But I mean that hadn't changed. I mean they always show the leaders. They've shown the leaders all their career. I mean from when I started racing, you had to be in the top 5 or 10 at least to get on TV. So I don't think that part of it's changed. I don't know what the fix is there, but unfortunately that's the times that we're in. There's not a lot of sponsors out there willing to spend. I mean, I bet Xfinity Series, if you wanted to do the whole thing, I bet it cost them $6 million. So back, I know the Nesquik sponsorship was 1, 3, or 4 or something like that. But that that's 24 years ago now. But that's crazy. It's went up that much. I mean, some of those guys are paying $100,000 just for one one Xfinity race. So I don't know how to fix that. And I don't know how to fix to show the top 30, on TV either. But other than running better, I mean, But again, that kind of goes in line. I mean, if you spent more money to get a better car, you might be up in the top 10. So I don't know. That's why I don't say what I really think sometimes. But I think some of the competition side, I feel like I really know how to fix it, but I don't know.
Have you ever thought about getting involved with NASCAR? Obviously, your brother David is an official with NASCAR. Have you ever thought about jumping in there, seeing if you can get your 2 cents with the competition side?
That gets me back on that airplane.
Oh, that's true. You
Yeah.
can work remotely now. We do
Yeah,
everything from
I
home.
could. Yeah. Elton Sawyer's in there, and
Yes, sir.
David, he's the head of safety inside the car. So, yeah, I don't know. That's right up David's alley. I mean, he's been a fanatic about his seat his whole career. So, for him to be ahead of that, to be able to look over that car inside through tech line and things like that, that's just right up his alley, and he's loving every minute of it. But it was good to me. I was very, very blessed to be able to do what I did and to meet the people and work with the people I did along the way. So I'm gonna take that and run with it.
Absolutely. We're getting down towards the end of the hour here. I'm going to pass you over to Dustin for his final questions. I'll have a few more for you at the end there, and then we'll wrap it up. But thanks so much for being here with us, Jeff.
Oh,
Absolutely, been
yeah,
fantastic.
absolutely appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we talk about, changes that could be made to NASCAR and stuff up that alley. What was your initial reaction for when NASCAR introduced the chase format back in 2004?
Well, originally I thought it was good. Well, I mean, I thought it was good, but again, it doesn't really. I mean, you could go into the last 10 races, the leader, and have one bad race and put you out. I mean, blow a motor. So in my day, I mean, when I won the championship, we won over 600 points, and my teammate was second. So, but it made my that season shine. So the only bad part about the way they do it nowadays is you could have the best season of your life and get taken out the first race. So with a blown motor wreck or whatever, not be able to come back in those next two races and be able to get back over the hump where you need to be. So that's the only bad downfall. It does tighten everybody up. I I always wanted to go back and see if they did that in 2000, if I would have still won. I feel like I would have, but I know I ran third, I think, at Homestead at the last race. So, and I believe Mark Martin won, and I think another Cup driver was second. So if I'd have made it to Homestead, I would have still won the race, still won the championship. But I always want to go back and do that, and one of these days I will. But it sometimes I think a lot of times it bites the person that had the best season. And I think Martin Truex comes up for one reason. I think last year he was in that situation. He won the regular season, but he didn't win the championship. Maybe didn't even make it to the last race. But I don't know. It's however you look at it.
Absolutely. So, for all the long-time fans that are curious on what Jeff Green is doing today, whether that's hunting or sim racing, what can they find Jeff Green doing in 2024 after the NASCAR career and after everything has slowed down a bit? What can they find Jeff Green doing today?
I race Elite Series on Sunday night, sometimes Monday, Tuesday night, sometimes Wednesday. When I'm not doing that, I help my in-laws farm. I hunt. Our turkey season comes in tomorrow, and it goes or Saturday, and it goes for 3 weeks. So I'll be turkey hunting about every day until it dries up, so we can start farming. So those are little things, and I work in my shop here. Do some things for myself, do some things for other people, and I'm a fabricator by trade, and that's what I grew up doing, building stuff, building race cars and things like that. So I still love to do it. I have all the tools to do it. So why not? It keeps me busy and keeps me entertained.
Absolutely. That's so cool. It's good to see that Jeff Green is so down to earth as you are. And you have accomplished so much in your NASCAR career. It's so cool to see you here on the podcast. I want to pass you back to Robert Hill for his final questions.
Thanks, man.
Jeff, let's talk iRacing here. You mentioned your teammates that you've had in your NASCAR Cup career and the Busch Series as well, but who's your favorite teammate on iRacing?
None of them. I really, I really
I feel
like
that.
Dave. Yeah, I really like Dave Carpenter. He's really a good guy. No, they're all great. Gerald Campbell. He's not really my teammate, but he wrecked me last week, so I don't really like him today. But they're all good. Goody's really a good guy. I really pick on him a lot. And the Dragon, he does really good. He's really fast. Yeah, I just got to keep him calmed down, but they have to keep me calmed down too. So we have a lot of fun. You come on there every once in a while and talk around with us. So Chris Wright gets on there occasionally and talks with us, but we have so much fun. I wish we could run better as a team. Seem like I'm carrying those guys all the time, and my back's really hurting. But no, we have a good time. I'm just kidding. So
So the
Goody's
message here is to Michael Goodman: step it up, brother. Get
that's
get
right.
more
Yeah,
speed there in that
yeah.
44.
If
And
he
get up
if he would
there.
race more, it might help. So
It's
anyway,
true. It's
yeah,
true. And
yeah.
obviously we have some great competitors on the racetrack. Who's your favorite to battle with, and who don't you like to battle with out there in the Elite Racing League on iRacing?
Well, this week is Gerald, but I like them all. I like them all to be able to, and especially, like the ARCA series. There's 20 guys that can win. The other 20 are just making laps, but they're learning. So they're learning each and every week, and if they just keep their eyes open and learn, they'll be a better racer at the end of the day. So I enjoy all those guys. But when you race with Fody and yourself and Trump and those guys, they bring the best out in you, and I struggle a lot to keep up with them. And on a good day, I can run maybe fifth or sixth, seventh in the Xfinity series and 15th in the Cup series, and hopefully the top 5 in the trucks. So, but I enjoy those guys. Really know how to race. They have a lot of race craft. Ethan Burrell's one of them. I mean, he amazes me what he can do with the race cars. So, that's really. I mean, when you're sitting in the seat and you can't feel it, all you can do is hear it. You stuff like that goes through your mind. Those guys, how they save tires, and how do they when they go when they need to, and then they don't have to when they don't have to. So it amazes me how much racecraft there is out there. It amazes me sometimes how much there's not too, but it's still good racing. Everybody wants to pick on Chad, but I think he's calmed down a little bit this year. So hopefully we can race some more with him.
Absolutely, Jeff. It's been really great having you here tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, you're welcome, man. I appreciate it. It's been good times.
Exactly. We need to get Kyle Weatherman a victory lane at Talladega. That is the
Absolutely.
goal. That's the plan. That's what we're going for. We need that 91 Drive Smart car in victory lane ASAP. And what not a better place to do it than Talladega. Well, I think we should go ahead and cap this one up. I appreciate everyone for tuning in here tonight. It was a heck of a show. And we'll catch you in the next one. This is episode number 8. We'll be back with episode number 9 in the future. Appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Have a great night, everyone.